Speaking of putting together a wedding, are you looking for somebody to plan your next special day? Well, if you are, I have two people here who are extremely knowledgeable about that. I'd like to welcome to the show Jill and Darren Jones with Stoic Events. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Welcome to the show and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Well, speaking of New Year's, tell me what you have going on with Stoic Events, because I'm sure you're starting to gear up for that wedding season. So, Jill, what's happening right now?
We have been incredibly busy. Such a blessing. We have a wedding this weekend, starting out the year right, and then we really don't have very many openings for this year, which is always nice.
That's what you call a nice problem.
Yes, it's a very nice problem. Right there. We actually have opened up our horizon from the last time we were here, and we're starting to travel more. So we're not just staying in the Central Valley; we're going throughout. So that's kind of fun.
Okay, so Darren, where are you traveling?
Well, we already did a couple weddings on the coast so far in Paso Robles so far. We're going to Pismo, right?
Pismo.
Got one in Pismo.
Yosemite.
Yeah, we got two in Yosemite this year.
Fantastic.
Excited about that, yeah.
Okay, so how far out are people booking? Because obviously you're pretty booked, you're saying right now, but so how far out should people be looking to book with you?
Well, depending on what their needs are, if they're wanting someone that's more involved in the planning process, I would say a year. If they're wanting more of just day of coordination, I would say probably at least 6 months, because you want to be able to make sure that you talk to different coordinators in the Valley, because there's a lot of them.
Sure.
And not everybody's for everybody. And whoever's helping you day of or planning your wedding is going to be all up in your business. So you want to make sure that you get along with them really well.
They're going to be up in your business.
That will help, because
Yes.
they're the person who's going to take you through this special
That's
day.
right.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
So Darren, as you're moving forward with kind of the 2025 year, what are some of the trends that you're seeing right now? Are things changing a little bit in the direction of weddings? Or
Yep. There's trends every year, right? There's new color palettes and all kinds of new trends that you can get into. But we see a lot of people here in the Central Valley. What we get involved with is a lot of mid-range, rustic country weddings. I don't know what it is, but people really like the barn look. They really like that Western look, right? So we see a big request for that right now.
So do you have a list? So let's say a couple will come to you and say, this is what I want, this is my vision. Do you then have the list and then coordinate with those property management or property managers or businesses to then book that venue?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What we do is we listen to our potential clients and what they want, and then we have venues that we've worked directly with that we can speak on behalf of them. So we know what the venues have to offer, so we present that to our potential clients, dependent on what they want to try to pull off, right?
Along with vendors too.
Right.
There's a lot of different
Right.
facets that go into planning and having a wedding.
Sure.
And I think a lot of brides, obviously it's usually their first time, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't really know how it all comes together, and they really do think that they can have Aunt Sally help them out or their sister help them out, which is all great. But what I have seen is what happens is they have a little bit too much to drink. They're not really paying attention to the formalities of it. They're enjoying it too. They're a guest. So, when you take that person away from being a guest, it's really hard for them to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to make sure everything's executed and done in a well-mannered time.
Of course. So speaking of the trends, we were talking about, the locations, and the barn is kind of a big thing too. And you discussed color palettes. What are some of the things, Jill, that you're seeing for coming up in 2025?
2025, I'm not 100% sure about color palettes, if they're going to change a whole lot, because usually it's very seasonal. But one thing that's changing a lot is the garter toss and the bouquet toss.
Okay, so let's tell the viewers about what's happening with that.
So a lot of times people are not doing the garter anymore because it's very weird and uncomfortable, a lot of times. So what they'll do is they'll either throw a football or they'll do something different. Football is pretty much primarily what we've seen a lot. Some people will throw an empty box, like a liquor box, and then whoever catches it, they get the liquor bottle once it's caught. The empty box is caught.
No, I can only imagine the full box of liquor heading your
direction.
Right?
Well, I'm telling you, the first time we had someone say they were going to do that, I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. They're like, oh no, we take the liquor out. I'm like, okay. And then for the brides, for their bouquets, a lot of times what they're doing is instead, or they're finding different ways. Instead of throwing it, you can put a string on it, and whoever gets the string that's actually attached. But the biggest thing I've seen is having a dedication of the bouquet for the moms. Because the moms are not getting the recognition like the dads do. The dads get the dance with their daughter. They get their final, like, okay, I'm letting you get married and we're done. They're the ones that present the woman to the man at the altar. So now the girls are wanting to represent their mom in a way. And so instead of doing the bouquet toss, they do this whole speech and like, I'm sorry, ladies, we're not doing a bouquet toss this time. This bouquet goes to my mom. And then they do a nice,
lovely.
they do a nice, thoughtful speech about their mom. And that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, we saw it one time at we did one wedding in Kingsburg where there was a special moment where the groom waited, and I think it was every lady in the wedding was given a rose, and they all went up to the groom, who took all the roses and then placed it at a memorial for, I think, his mother, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just a new, fresh way of like remembrance and bringing people into the event as well. Super special, super cool.
Yeah,
right.
People are getting really creative.
And that's what I was going to say, is there seems to be more of a shift in people's own creativity, kind of moving, maybe keeping some traditional-ish type things, but then taking it in a new direction, which I think is wonderful because people are just making it their own in the way that they want to have it. Yeah. So are you seeing now that kind of COVID has come to a close, is it doubled, tripled? What Darren, what are you seeing?
It's tremendous. I'm an officiant. That has been booked more.
Okay.
We're coordinators as well, and we also have our fingers in with a venue, Kingsburg Ranch. So all three areas have increased tremendously. I'm sorry.
Tremendously, yes.
But yeah, we've seen that. Like we said, I'm going to marry somebody for a sunrise service in Yosemite in March, right? Mm-hmm. So this is somebody from New Jersey. So that's, people are looking to get married, looking to do things, or reaching out to where they're getting ready to go, making plans, making arrangements. Yeah, the up and up's there, I think.
And you know what's nice is people, maybe don't consider the Central Valley as a destination, but you said it, Yosemite is great. We look a little bit outside. We even have wineries here now in town that are trying to piggyback off of that Paso and that Napa type of feel. And so we're really going in a bigger direction, which I think is great, especially for people who are planning events. So speaking, I know you've talked about weddings. What other type of celebrations, Jill, are you involved with as well?
We have done birthday parties, baby showers, retirement parties, corporate events. Anything that needs any kind of planning or any kind of a timeline that needs to be executed basically is when you hire somebody to come in and help you do that.
Okay, so for people who are doing that, are they mostly booking weekdays, weekends? Where are you seeing some of those? Because mostly everybody's aiming with the wedding for the weekend, or is there a little bit more flexibility then, or is it still the weekend the popular?
It's pretty much weekends the popular. Sometimes people will say they want to push things to like a Thursday or possibly a Sunday, because primarily our footprint is weddings. So it's primarily Saturdays. Once in a while we'll have something on Sunday. Birthday parties usually aren't as involved, or even all the other kind of parties are not as involved as a wedding. There's not as many details that go into it. So those ones are not quite as popular for us, which is fine because our real niche is the weddings. But people are picking different days, but they're usually, it's like Thursday to Sunday is like that sweet spot.
But if I'll interject.
May I interject?
Last year we had a wedding December 31st, leading over into the new year. They wanted to get married and celebrate into the new year. So there's a wild day to pick, right? But then we've also had hot days outside in Fresno and freezing cold days. So it's, I think that we're just seeing people that are just looking for windows of availability too here. Because like you say, there's a lot of people in the Central Valley, and it really matters where you get married too. And if your venues are closing up fast, You got to try to find a place to get married.
You need
right?
to be a little bit flexible that way. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about the direction of entertainment. So, we know that it takes booking in a year, that's wonderful. But then once you book the venue, then there's the source of entertainment. What type of things are you seeing right now going in with the weddings?
Oh my goodness. We could talk about this for an hour because people are bringing in so many cool, unique things to weddings, like late night bacon wrapped hot dogs at 10 o'clock, popcorn food trucks, like anything you can think of that is a wow factor and a comfort factor for the guests, right? Really,
But I've
really
also
cool
seen
stuff.
it where they're like really amping up on it, where they're getting the mariachi band, they're getting the live band, they're getting the DJs, they're having them all. Like they want all of it.
Big budgets.
Oh, okay. Big
budgets.
budgets.
Yeah, big budgets.
Okay, so speaking of which, because everybody's budget will look different, what do you, depending on, let's say you want all the bells and whistles, what should a couple be looking at?
I'll let you touch that because I think the big question is going to be really that's going to be the big question that you start with before you get married is your budget.
So, I always like to tell people you can do a low budget wedding for 10 grand probably is the
Okay.
lowest. But typically for an average wedding, you're looking at least 25,000 and up. So I always start with my brides and say, okay, before you start, what are your non-negotiables? Let's pick your 3 non-negotiables. How much are they? Okay, now then break it down from there. So like what I like to do is reverse engineer everything. So you say, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. They're my non-negotiables. I have to have these at my wedding. I don't care how much they cost. Okay, well, if that's the case, then these other few things, we need to decide, are we going to ex-nay those? Or
Right.
are we going to find more ways to make money to pay for those?
Sure.
Up our budget. Maybe go ask grandma or maybe go sell some stuff. I don't
Grandma's
know.
not
Like,
going to give it to you, man. Grandma's not going to give
Don't
it to you.
always count on grandma.
You never know.
You know?
You never know. You never know. But I'm just saying, you just kind of get a little bit more
Right.
creative. But if you reverse it, then you kind of know where you stand. And like it also when you're talking about a budget, you're also talking about your guest count. And I think that's probably where your biggest part of your budget's going to go. So it really kind of, it so depends. It's such a case by case.
Right, and
thing.
what's interesting is then you were saying, they're bringing in taco trucks, and
Yeah.
so the food part of it looks very different today too. It's not always just the formal sit-down type of dinner. So people are definitely, they can be creative, and you are there to help guide them through it all, which is wonderful. And I think it's great, Darren, that you're an officiant as well.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
have fun with it.
It could-
We have fun with every aspect of it, right? Because it's their special day, it's your special day, and you can make it any way you want. So you mentioned how people are getting kind of away from traditionalism. Absolutely, they are. They want their special day to represent their special relationship. So
Right.
we've seen so much since we've talked last that the experience is so much more than last time we talked, that you see so much more of what's happening in the Central Valley, and there's a lot of people getting married, man, like that are literally getting pushed away because there's nowhere to get married, or there's some services that are just booked solid.
Right.
So-
Well, and you had mentioned COVID and what has
Right.
happened since COVID. And I think, during COVID time, the thing that was popular was the micro weddings, the smaller 50 and under weddings. And people are that's still kind of a trend. That's still kind of happening, but not as much.
Right.
So I think people are like, okay, now we can do this. We can get back into real life. The safety of being here again and open is like really starting to become more open. I think it took people a few years to kind of really start to feel comfortable because, once we did finally open, you had those big weddings and people were still getting sick. Even a year later, people were still getting sick.
Sure,
And then they
sure.
felt bad, like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have done this or, but I think people are realizing like, okay, it's time we can move on. And so now they're like planning the bigger weddings again and not so many micro weddings. Even though micro weddings are still a big thing, some people just choose to do that because they don't want to do a lot of planning.
Right. So if people want to plan a micro or macro wedding, how would they be able to get in touch with you, Darren?
Well, it's simple. StoicEvents.net, right? That's STOIC, Stoic Events, or Instagram's where we promote a lot of our current events, a lot of our promotions, and that you can find us anywhere linked to StoicEvents.net.
That sounds great. Well, I am so glad, Jill and Darren, that you
Yeah.
came by the studio today and talked to us about the trends and what people really need to be prepared for if they're planning on that special day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. This is Hope Rosky with Weddings and Celebrations.